we're going to do now is we've looked at missing sides, calculate missing sides. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at calculating missing angles. So if you look at this triangle here, we've got triangle BAC, and we're asked to calculate the missing angle, which is angle A. So I'm just going to put that in there, okay, and so this is the angle that I'm trying to calculate. Now, in some respects, I actually think choosing the right ratio for calculating missing angles is easier than missing sides, because you must label the triangle from the angle this time that you are calculating. Not the angle that you were given, like it was for a missing side question, but from the angle that you are calculating. So where do I go first? I go to my right angle and I label this side to be my hypotenuse. Then go to the angle I'm trying to calculate and I go opposite it to label that side, and that leaves me with the adjacent side. Now, to do this question, you have to use the two sides that you are given. So I've got to use the opposite side and I've got to use the hypotenuse side. I haven't got the adjacent side. I'm not asked to calculate the adjacent side. So if I've got a ratio that's got the adjacent side in it, it's going to be pretty useless, okay, for me. So what have I got to use? The opposite and the hypotenuse side. Which ratio then have I got that uses that? So CATOA, the one that's got the opposite and the hypotenuse side in, is sine. Difference now is it's the angle that's missing. So I'm just going to call that angle X. So the sine of angle X is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. What do I now do? I put my opposite side is 5 centimetres. My hypotenuse side is 8 centimetres. And the thing that's missing this time is the sine of X. So how do I remove the sine? Because that's what I want to do when I'm trying to solve an equation, to leave me with just the letter X, the X angle. Well, believe it or not, there's a button on your scientific calculator that does that job just for you. It often lives just above the sine button, and it's called sine inverse. So the way we get rid of that sine is to do sine inverse, and our sine for inverse is a -1, to 5 over 8. If you have a look at your scientific calculator now, you'll see that there's a sine button, sine of X, and then just above that sine button, you'll see sine to the -1. And often the button that you need to press to be able to get that to function is either the second function button, okay, so if you've got a second function button, it will bring it into play, or it might just be a different coloured button that brings all the things across the tops available for your scientific calculator. So try and find your sine inverse button, and then all you'd have to do is type sine inverse 5 divided by 8, or you could sometimes do the 5 divided by 8 first, then press sine inverse. Each calculator is slightly different, and out will come an angle. In this particular case, it's 38.7 degrees, and I've rounded that to 1 decimal place. So you are now calculating missing angles given two sides in a right angled triangle. Let's have a look at another question. Okay, let's look at this right angled triangle. This time I'm going to try and calculate this missing angle, okay? Been represented by theta, okay, a Greek letter. How do I go about doing it? I must label this triangle correctly. First side I'm going to label is the side which is the hypotenuse, which is opposite, okay, where the right angle is. Next side I'm going to label is the side that's opposite the angle that I'm trying to calculate. There's my angle. This is the side that's opposite that angle. This leaves me with the side which is next door to the angle, which is the adjacent side. Choose the right ratio and you'll definitely get this question correct. So here we go again. So, CATOA. Okay. What have I got to use? I've got to use the two sides that I've got. The hypotenuse I haven't got. I'm not asked to calculate it, so it's useless. So if any of those ratios I've got the hypotenuse side is, you're definitely not going to use it. I've got to use the one that's got the opposite side and the adjacent side, because those are the two sides that I've got. Which ratio has got the opposite and the adjacent in it? Tangent ratio. So here we go. Tan of the angle that I'm trying to calculate is equal to opposite over adjacent. The opposite side is 15 centimetres. The adjacent side is 7 centimetres. And I'm asked to find that missing angle. Remember the technique to get rid of the tan, okay, is to use the tan inverse button on your calculator. So it's often a shift or a second function. It lives just above the tan button. You'll see it, it'll have it tan with a little -1. That means tan inverse. So what do? I'm going to do tan inverse of 5 divided by 7. Type that into your calculator and go round line to 1 decimal place. You get 70.0 degrees. So that angle is 70.0 degrees. Okay, let's look at this final question on calculating a missing angle. Technique again, as always, label the triangle correctly. Go to the right angle, label hypotenuse, the side that is opposite the right angle. Go to the angle you're trying to calculate, angle X in this particular case, and label the side that is opposite that angle. Leaves me with the remaining side, which is the adjacent side. Obviously now, we should be getting really good at being able to work out which of the ratios we're going to use. It's got to have the 8 and the 6 because I'm calculating a missing angle. Remember, we're trying to find just one thing missing, okay, when we're using our ratios. Which of our ratios then? Let's have a look. So, TOA. It's got to have the adjacent side, it's got to have the hypotenuse side, so the ratio that has both of those in is cosine. I'm setting up now. Cos of x, cos of my angle, is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. What do I now do? I just place in the sides. The adjacent side is 6 centimetres. The hypotenuse side is 8. And here we go again. We've got to get rid of that cos to leave me the angle, angle x. How do I get rid of the cos? I use the cos inverse button on my calculator. Where does it live? Just above the cos. Okay, so you've got the cos button on your calculator. You'll find there's a cos inverse just lying above it. Remember, second function or shift to bring it into play. So x equals cos inverse 6 over 8. Type that into your calculator and you get an angle of 41.4 degrees. I've rounded mine to 1 decimal place. You should now feel competent in being able to calculate missing angles in right angle triangles using trigonometry.